So there we are. We are now recording. So again, using your web browser, going to go to this site up here, which takes us to the login page for the cloud. You'll have individual logins to access the terminals. And then you'll log into the terminal through here. It'll give you an icon representing either the Pro Shop point of sale, the back office, or the food and beverage point of sale. You click on the respective one to go into that certain application. And in my case, we've clicked on the back office, and so we are actually on the back office station right here. So what I wanted to do, and the way I've sort of structured this session is we have 2 days, 2 4-hour sessions, and the first part of it is going to be setting up the restaurants and the point of sale terminals. Next week, what we'll do is we're going to dive into creating the menus and the items and all that type of fun stuff. So we do have to get through a little bit of the administration side before we can get into the actual hands-on playing with it. There is actually also a worksheet. It's the Excel file that was sent out, and that's just good for mapping over and planning out the data before we actually start sitting down and doing data entry. So feel free to take a look at that and just sort of write out your menus the way they are there, organize them if you want to, and it'll help us next week when we begin doing the actual data entry. So for today, I'm going to start off in the back office, and we're going to go by setting up our restaurants, which, like Logan had mentioned, we did a lot of stock layouts, so there's not much work to do here, but it's more explaining what the features do. So what we do is we go to the setup, food and beverage, and restaurants. So notice here we've got the one restaurant, and everybody should have one that says Restaurant 1. Again, most places I'm assuming are not running multiple different food and beverage outlets. So this Restaurant 1 gets by, but again, after today, you should be able to go in, and if you did need to create another restaurant, by all means you can. So we'll open it up, and we're going to go down starting from the left, working over to the right. What we have is the restaurant ID. So anytime you see an ID field in the system, for those who weren't on Logan's call, it's basically just something that the system uses to identify. What we're more at a user level is this restaurant description. And that's going to tell us more in a sort of human-friendly kind of language. So right now, all of them are set up with the stock Restaurant 1. You can feel free to go in and put in the name of the restaurant or the food and beverage outlet that you're working with. These are all, the checkbook is going to be based upon your accounting team, so we won't worry about that. Food and beverage storage, one central location where everything is and where everything's inventoried and taken from, so we use the food and beverage storage. The variance account, so this is going to be the account for any overages or under. Tip tracking. What's going to happen, there's actually a separate document that runs through how that entire process works. At a very high level, what's going on is the system's going to track any tips that are processed in a method other than cash. And what we'll do is we'll put them into this tip tracking account, and then I understand that the payroll will be sending that out to the respective servers come payday. And that's all that this system does. So it's going to take it and it's going to show what has or what's going to be dropped at the end of the night. It'll actually show a tip line and include it in the cash drop. Moving over, and this is where some of our work today is going to take place, is managing our tables and sections, and in a little part, manage the menu sections. So we're sort of just going to put this on hold for a sec while we cover the rest of the page here. Closing threshold. What this is let's say your restaurant closes at 3 in the morning. Technically, that 3 in the morning, between midnight and 3, it's still part of the previous day. And all this closing threshold does is letting the system know what time you technically close the day out. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's just more of a guideline here. And now we get into some options and settings here. So we get things like the disable end of day count. And what this does is when a server goes to close out their day, there's a little button and it shows where they can type in, I have 3 quarters, 2 nickels, and 3 dimes. And it gives them the actual total amount as opposed to the individual counts. So again, this can be turned on and off depending on if you want that, that feature available to them. This copy shop feature is being phased out, so we don't need to worry about that. Allow a discount on alcohol. Again, I'm not overly familiar with your state laws on that, about whether or not you can discount alcohol. If you are allowed to, then by all means you can put a check mark in there and make it that you can do that at the point of sale. You can also disable whether or not your administrator access can transfer an order between people. And you can also, in the same idea, go through the enable order transfer. So a server could transfer an order back and forth between each other, maybe to cover for breaks or things like that. There's also the option, if you're using the transfer ability, do you want it to be prompting the user before they actually do it? So you'll go to make the transfer and it says, are you sure? You click OK, and away you go. Enable multiple on account. This is typically going to be working where there's a lot of membership, where they have charge privileges, and whether or not you want there to be different accounts that a member could post their meals to. So, you know, if you had a group of 4 members, do you want them to be able to post multiple amounts across different membership accounts? The allow restaurant order, we're not going to worry about that. Basically what that would mean is you could transfer it from restaurant A to restaurant B if you're running multiple restaurants. Exclude tax and the tip percentage. So when you do a tip calculation on the point of sale, do you want it to be based upon tax included or not? Allow order transfer to an active table. So this would be handy where as a person walks up to the bar, you know, orders a beer, and then they go to sit down at the table. Do you want to be able to transfer that order to one of the active tables? The next options here we're talking about is in the end of day. And we go to the enable server end of day. So if you have independent servers who are running their own basically cash drawer, you would use the enable server end of day. If it was one server or one group of servers and they all share, then you would turn this off. The blind settings. So using blind end of day and blind end of day cache. Without these marked, what's going to happen is when they do an end of day, it's going to show them all the recorded sales for things like cash, credit card, debit, and so on. If you want to prevent that from showing so that the server actually has to physically go through and count everything and then log it, you would use the blind end of day. And if you just want to hide the anticipated cash amount, you could use the cache blind end of day. And then you can also have it fill in automatically the actual cash amount. I don't honestly know of anybody who uses that, but it is there if you wanted to. Display on statements. So do you want these charges to display as food and beverage and the individual items on a membership statement that are run maybe once a month? And then you can change, do you want the description of tip to be reflected as an additional tip? So again, to clarify what the tip amount actually is as opposed to like a gratuity. And then do you want to show on your printed checks the tip line, the signature line, and so on? And then do you want to be able to allow people who have gift cards to use that for a tip amount? Okay. That's the basics of all the different settings that we have here. And like I was mentioning, we're going to take a little pause now and just make sure everybody's up to speed. Everybody has, you know, an understanding of all the different settings that we looked at so far. Are there any questions or comments or concerns about what we've seen? Wow, we got a real quiet group here today. Okay. I also wanted to point out, and I should have probably done this earlier, the chat window, for those of you who have discovered it, please feel free to use that to type in any questions you might have about either what we've seen or what might be coming to mind as we're reviewing what we're looking at here. Okay, so if everybody's familiar, yes?
Hey, this is Lance. I wanted to ask you a question. We went through
Sure.
Logan, Tom Bugby, and myself, and there were a lot of things that we kind of established as standard.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these options, are they, as you're going through these options, is there a standard at which most people do these things, or is it really individual?
It's individual. What we did is, based upon the discovery stuff that we had done a week ago, we went and made these settings. So what we're looking at here is a pretty standard setting to go out and begin working with. What I wanted to do with the discussion was just, I always get questions about what does it do? What happens if I turn this on or off? So I always like to introduce what these features are, but every course will have this stock layout. We sort of custom designed it for the course group to have these settings automatically set up. And this is, like I said, a pretty stock, commonly used setting.
Okay, gotcha. So the checked items here and the way this is structured is a reflection of what it's the work product of Tom Bugby's preferred settings, right?
That's exactly it. Yes, what we were talking about when we did that food and beverage discovery, based upon.
Gotcha. For the guys on the call, this is what we want, right, to be our F&B standard. And if there are options or changes that you'd like to do here, I don't think that's a problem as long as this stock remains. If you want to add to that with layers of security of control or control, that's good, but we shouldn't go backward and eliminate some of these things. Does that make sense to you, Bradley?
That does. That's typically what I recommend. Now the next screen that I popped up, this will need to be done by each individual location for the Shift 4 setup. So it's going to ask you for the various information that is provided by Shift 4 for the restaurant IDs and the terminal IDs.
Yeah, but again, we're not using Shift 4. We're integrating with ETS.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, because we don't have that information yet, it defaults to the Shift 4. You'll be going in, hit ETS, and then again do the setup for ETS. And this will be all information provided to you from ETS.
Great.
Okay. Again, thank you, Lance, for the questions there. Are there any other questions out from the group?
Yeah, can you explain, this is Keith from Riverside, can you explain the enabled server in the day one more time?
Sure. So at the end of a shift, let's say we have 3 servers and each one runs their cache out of their little cache pouch or however they handle it. So server A might finish at 8 o'clock at night, B finishes at 10, and then C is the closer. So each one can come in here and they'll have the option, if you have this option enabled like we do, each one will be able to end their own shift. So they come in and it's going to tally all the sales for server A, tell them what they should be dropping, tally their tip amount, and so on. Server B comes in at 10 o'clock and they'll be able to close out in the same manner. And finally, C would also be able to come in and close out their own shift.
Great. So I brought that up, Lance. We only have one POS system at Riverside, so we will have to uncheck that box, if that makes sense.
You don't have to, because what happens is each server runs independently. That's fine. And then what happens is they're at the end of day, so when you're ready to close up shop for the night, there's a feature for end day. And it'll close out the entire restaurant, not just the server.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, Bradley, right? So we'd have multiple servers in this case, working and covering different shifts.
Exactly.
All logged on with an identity into the same point of sale. Each with the ability to close their own shift or instance, right, depending upon the jargon, and then still close out there at the end of the day based on your closing threshold.
Exactly.
For the umbrella of the F&B business.
Exactly, yes. And it's still even, I don't know if you do any type of like swing shifts there. So server could come in for the breakfast part, do their little 4-hour, and then close out that shift, come back in the evening, and be able to close out that shift as well.
And Brad, how does the system decipher what they bring through versus somebody else?
So when they come into the point of sale, they would type in or swipe in with their specific number, which recognizes them in the system as being, like in my case, I would swipe in and say, oh, it's Bradley, so anything I do under that number comes up with my sales, and then I would log out when I walk away from the point of sale. And then the next server to come in, it would track whatever they logged in with. Did that answer your question?
Sorry, yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Is there anything else out there? What I wanted to do next was sort of talk about how the sections and tables will work. So before we move on to that, are there any questions? Okay. So what we have is our two sections for managed sections and managed tables. So the sections would be things like the bar and the main floor. So if you have people that come up and sit at the bar and people that sit in the dining room sort of area, we're going to designate them as that. If you don't, and you just have one floor that you work from, we still need to create the section ID, and you can call it, the restaurant floor, whatever you want to call it. And that's going to be the collection of the tables. So what we'll do is we'll go and open up the tables section. And, oops, I just lost my screen here. Oh, looks like I'm having some internet connection problems today. There we go. So we'll go into the play back office. Okay, why am I having problems here? Okay, just gonna pause the recording for a sec here. Okay, now I got it going. Just had to kick it a few times, I guess. Okay, so we're back in the restaurant section. We had talked about the managing of the sections, and now we're going to go to the tables themselves. And these are the individual tables that people would sit at. And you can have them in any numbering context that you want. If you use like a 3-digit number, you could go 101 for 101 through 110 for the bar, and 201 for window, and 301 and so on for the central dining room. If you don't go that far, that's fine. You could just set up the section as being table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, not really a concern depending on how elaborate you want to go with this. So as we're connected right now to the, I think we're Los Legos here. So I'm going to give control over to Sean. You're at Los Legos, right?
No, I'm at Napa.
Oh, Napa? Okay, well, we're going to go from the bottom of the list anyway, and alphabetically your name's there. So we're going to give you the control, and if you'd like to go in and create a section, and we'll call this one, let's do a bar. So we're going to have a bar, a window, and a patio section. Okay, so in the section ID, again, this is what the system uses. So we could call this bar 01. Okay, and in the description, you could say that this is the main bar. Click the Save button, and there we go. So I guess next on the list then, we're going to go to Mike. Going to give you the control. So if you want to go in and let's create one for the patio.
Just call it Patio 01.
Patio 01 works. Yeah, we'll keep that naming convention. Again, if you have unique ones at your establishment, by all means you can put them in here. And in the description, you just say that it's the patio. And again, press Save to save it. There we go in our main table. Okay, we're going to change it up now. Moving over to Keith. Keith, we're going to do something a little bit different here. I know the sections probably seems really, really straightforward. If there's no questions on that, what we're going to have Keith do here is go to the tables, and he's actually going to put a couple tables in now for the different sections. Okay, so in the table ID, this is where you would name the table number. So like I was mentioning, using like a 101, 201, 301 kind of sequence, what you could do is say the bar ones are 101. So we'll do table ID of 101. In the description, say this could be, bar, or it's going to be at the bar, and we know it's going to be, table 101, or it's the leftmost seat, or whatever you use to designate that to your team. For this one, let's use bar 101. Okay, section ID, going to hit the magnifying glass, and this is going to bring up that listing of sections that we created. So we know it's going to the bar, so we're going to highlight the bar, and we either can double click on that, or highlight it and click the select button. And then we click Save. And there we go again. What I'm going to have you do, Keith, again, let's do bar 102. Oh, perfect. We got a really sharp group here today. Good, good. Okay, now we're going to change over and we're going to give this to John. So John, if you want to come in, and this time we're going to create tables for the patio. So let's say the patio is section 300. Perfect. Perfect. Let's do another one. I'll do patio. Let's do a second one in the patio section. Perfect. Okay. John, you're off the hook now. Let's see. Brian. Let's have you go and put one in the bar and one in the patio. Do you not have Barry on the line with us? Or am I saying Brian?
Yeah, I'm here. It's going through a launch a different deal.
Okay. Do you want me to continue on and we can sort of come back to you, or are you sort of comfortable?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think we have Adam here. So, Adam, we're going to give you now control. And if you could create one for the bar and one for the patio. Perfect. Alrighty. Now, did we create a third bar? I thought we did, but I'm not seeing that it's saved. So, sort of one thing to keep an eye on as you're doing your configuration work that we give out to you. Always want to make sure that you're saving as you go along. I always, anytime I've done anything in a screen, I always click the save button just to make sure it's there. So again, Adam, hate to put you on the spot. Let's create that bar 103 again. Perfect, there it is. Okay, now that we have this able, I'm going to take control once more here. When we look up in the restaurant, we can actually sort by clicking on any of the headers, and it's going to sort them in that order going alphabetically. So we can either do ascending or descending by table ID, description, or table section. Now, in the case of the table ID, because we do not have any alpha characters in there, it's going to sort it numerically. Okay. Are there any questions on what we've covered so far? And this has been in the restaurants section. Anything about the settings that might have popped up, or anything about doing the tables and the sections that we've just done? So again, now I highly encourage, please do not censor your questions. There is no silly question here. I want to make sure that you guys are 100% able to do this without us looking over your shoulder on this. Okay, well, it looks like we're all comfortable here. What I'm going to do is, like I mentioned, we're going to stop every so often just for a little water break, coffee break, bathroom break. I've got quarter two right now as my time. If we meet back at 5 minutes before the hour, and we will continue on, we're actually going to move away from the restaurants and move over into the point of sale. Okay, so we'll break for about, basically it's going to be about 10 minutes. I'm going to leave the session running. So you don't have to worry about logging out, logging back in. I am going to pause the recording, and we'll continue on from there when we pick up. So we'll see everybody in about 10 minutes. Okay, and we're back. Do we have everybody back with us?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so again, just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what we've set up today, what we've done or looked through so far in the restaurant section. Any questions on it? Anything that didn't quite make sense?
If we don't have a use for these table settings, do we have to set up table settings, or is it okay if we don't?
You don't have to. You can use an open tab, but what I might recommend, just to show which tables are available, that type of thing, is to create just a generic. So you could create one section and then create tables, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 throughout. Again, you don't have to. It's just sort of a recommendation I have just to keep things organized. We're good. Good on everything else? Okay. So I'm just going to move us along here. So we're going to close out the table section. What I also had, and again, anybody who's running multiple restaurants, what you can do is when we get into our next day's session on the menu sections, is with the manage menu sections, you can assign them to different restaurants. So if you had, let's say, an appetizers section that was common across 2 different restaurants, you can set it up here so that the restaurant 1 and restaurant 2 both have access to the appetizers menu. Or if, let's say, restaurant 1 had a special appetizer or had a specials section that was only applicable there, you could make it available only to that specific restaurant 1. That'll come more into play when we start doing more with the end user and next week's session as well. Okay, so we're going to move out of the restaurant section, so we'll close it out. And now we're going to go to Setup, Food and Beverage, and we're going to take a look at the food and beverage terminals. Now these are going to be the individual point of sales within each restaurant. What we've done is we've set up the default to be 2 point of sale terminals. Again, if you're not using 2, you don't have to. You can just use the 1. And then running down the list here, so we're now on page 3 of the agenda. And you may notice that on the agenda, there's not as many options or as entries as there are as we're looking on the page here. That's simply because what's on the page are the key features. What we're seeing here is every single feature that's available. Okay. So again, like we were talking about with the point of sale IDs and the descriptions, same concept stays the same. We mark them as restaurants. Don't need to worry about facilities. It's an old feature that is no longer in service. Here's the restaurant, so we can tell which restaurant each point of sale is pointed to. There's that closing threshold we saw before. And then we have this auto logout feature. So what's going to happen is after 15 seconds of inactivity, it's going to log the terminal out right to the main login page. And this is just a great security feature so you don't have different servers ringing things in under different names. You can also choose whether you want when an order is canceled, whether it jumps back to the logout page. And we have the enable cash drawer restriction. Where I've seen this used, and this could be very specific. Let's say your service staff only process credit card payments, things like that. They don't take cash. Cash is only done at the bar. And you have 2 bartenders. You could have each bartender only able to access the cash drawer. So the servers with their logins would not be able to kick that cash drawer out. Next option is the manager authorized discounts. So what this will do is it will pass through the authorization to put a discount in. If you want to have managers have to physically go over and authorize, then we would make sure that this is unmarked. We have our send on to tables. So there's a button in the point of sale that says back to tables. And when you click on that, this option would automatically send an order to the kitchen. We already have it set up so that when an order is exited from, it will send that to the kitchen as well. We have the option that when you open up a point of sale, it will show you all the events for the day. So if your course is doing a lot of events, by all means you can have it pop up that way. We've switched it off because most servers do not need access to the T-sheet, so that's turned off. Auto prompt for member lookup. This we want to have, so when you log in, it's going to prompt to say, when you create an order, is this a member? And if so, which member is it? Show order details. This is going to show you all the different options and that. On the check, it gets printed out, and most customers do not need to see that. They just want to see that they ordered a burger. So that's what we have set up here. Every time an order is canceled, it's going to prompt you to put in a reason why was this order canceled. Show the menu item on the comment check row. So what can happen is you can put a special typed in comment on a specific item to the kitchen so the kitchen knows what's going on here. And this will display it on the order screen. We have some printing settings, and this would be the documentation that was sent out. It says FB, POS 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are how the different checks show up depending on which of these options is turned on or off. So again, you can sort of refer to those, and it shows the receipt that went to the kitchen, the one that goes to the bar, and the one that the guest sees. So if everybody could sort of pull that up now in the PDF, or if you did print them out, you can take a look at them and just see how everything lays out. And all these features are what we see right in the middle here. So what will happen, I'll just go through each item and describe it. The print check on approval. So when you click the approval for credit card, it's going to print a check out. Print the itemized details on the receipt that you want to see. So instead of having, just 4 drinks, it'll say, a whiskey, a vodka, and a Manhattan. Print server read end on shift. This is going to print out a report of every transaction that server did. That report can also be printed out elsewhere in the system, and I can show you how to do that when we get into our end user training. Do we want duplicates printed for Visa, debit, on account, and gift cards? These two options work sort of in harmony with each other. Print alternatives in red and print the options in red when a printout goes to the kitchen. We'll be talking about alternatives and options next week in a little bit more detail. Basically, alternatives are one or something. Options are one and something. Enable restaurant order transfer. Won't need to be concerned about that one. Remove the substitute. So when an alternative is printed to the kitchen, by stock, it says substitute this for this. What we've engaged is to remove that completely so that the user the kitchen will see the thing and it just says, here's the alternative that the server would like to see. Print the check on the committal, so when a check is closed out to a member account, it's going to print it as well. Print out the gift card reconciliation, so it's going to show what was processed on gift cards. Print the canceled order, so anytime an order is canceled, it's going to send a notification to the kitchen that that order is canceled. Ignore comment on new table order. Every time a table opens up, by default, it will ask for a comment to be put in. That has been switched off. That was put in place for a specific user. When we do contact lookups, we can choose how they want to be sorted by. And that's what we do here. Some of you might have been noticing that we have the default payment, and right now it says force payment. What that does is when they go to close out a check, this would be the payment that they want to have defaulted to. I highly recommend leaving it as forced payment, simply because if you put it to something like cash, then that means somebody could accidentally close a checkout to cash that didn't mean to. In this case, it forces the user to make that conscious decision as to what method of payment they want to close that checkout to. And then we have some selections as to which copies and at what printer need to be printed out. On the receipt setup, down at the bottom here, we can put in any specific, you can put in, if you want specific header, footer information, like thank you for coming, or any promotional messages you want to put on your receipts. This is where it can be done from. And a little later when we talk about the end user training section, when we talk about reporting on the day and reporting in the outlets, on the reports button, we can choose what reports are accessible from this specific terminal. Typically, it's a reconciliation report and a sales report that we make available here. Managers have access to the back office so they can generate whatever ones they want. That is the basic setup of the food and beverage terminals. Any questions, comments, concerns on that? It's one of those things, the point of sale, it's good to know, but you might see it maybe and touch it maybe once a year, if that. Typically, the point of sales you have today are the point of sales you pretty much keep with you for years to come. But just want to make sure everybody's sort of comfortable with what the settings are and what they can do. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause here. What I'm going to do is open up those documents that I had referred to. So I'm going to put my screen on pause here while I get it all loaded up. Okay, so I had mentioned what we have here. In this right here, the Total eGolf setup, 1 FB point of sale. This is the stock settings. So what we've set up here, this is what it is. So you notice how when we look here, so here's the receipt that gets printed out. That would be the kitchen order that goes through, and this would be the bar order that goes through. Okay, so things to notice on this. Notice here's that substitute. So in the case of my burger, I wanted a meat doneness of medium and a choice of sauce with my mayo added on. With my beer being going to the bar, I had it substitute the size. So whether I was going with a full pint or a half pint. Okay, so that's, again, this is the base settings as they are today. The next option is when we start talking about the print the itemized on receipt. Here's examples of what that looks like. So notice here we have the 1 beer of the half pint, 1 of the full pint, and a burger with barbecue sauce on the side. Third option is to remove that substitute. So you notice now when we open this one up, notice all that substitute information has been taken away, and it just shows what the actual option is that was selected. I had mentioned about using the alternatives in red. So in here, the alternative for my beer was to either have a half pint or a full pint, and here they are in red. With the burger, it was the choice of doneness. That was an alternative. I could have it medium rare, medium well, and I chose medium. And then finally having the options in red. So this is the opposite, where I could have like pizza toppings. I could have onions and bacon and tomato and extra cheese. So notice in the choice of my burger, I had a choice that I had the add mayo and barbecue sauce. But notice over here, it doesn't do anything to my beers because those were both alternatives, not options. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here, so I'm just going to make sure that we have everything good. Okay. Are there any questions about those documents that were sent out containing the settings? Everybody's okay with that? Okay. And I had mentioned with the restaurant, or my mistake, when we set up the restaurant, what I had been talking about was the tip tracking, which is turned on. I'm going to open up, there's the tip tracking document and how the accounting part works. But I wanted to show you what the end of day reports look like. So here it is, where we took in a $12.79 for cash, and I had a $5 tip, so it automatically takes it out of my cash when I'm not using tip tracking. When you're using tip tracking, much like you will be, there's that $12.79 cash charge. It tells me about the $5 tip, but notice it doesn't take it out of my cash. It's going to put it to that specific GL, and then payroll will take that and put it onto the staff member's paycheck when that time is due. Okay. Any questions on the restaurant setup, the point of sale setup, anything like that? Okay. What I wanted to work on now, and we've got a good bit of time, so we can get a good jump start on what we're going to be looking at next week, is this worksheet. So I'm going to open this up. So I had one section here for doing your tables, so your tables and your sections. Then I also have one for doing the options and alternatives. And like I had mentioned, here's a brief description to keep them straight, is that an option is a choice of item or process that can be applied to a menu item. This could be things like pizza toppings or wings being sauced or dusted. The main idea is that options can be multiple choices of things. So like with pizza toppings, you can have onions and peppers and bacon and mushrooms and so on. Or you could have any combination, peppers and bacon only, or mushroom and onion. Whereas an alternative is a collection of items where only a single item can be selected. This could be choices where there's only one outcome. Perfect example is steak doneness. You can have rare or well done, but you can't have both on the same steak. And then what I've done is I've created an example of these pizza toppings. So I have pepperoni, peppers, sausage, onions, and extra cheese. There's a quantity of one each on the selection. And for my extra cheese, I noted that there was an upcharge on that. So if somebody orders extra cheese on it, it's an extra $2.50. Did the same thing over here with my alternatives. So meat temp was the one that I had mentioned in the example, so rare all the way through well, and there is no additional fee for any of them. Where also this can be used is things like side orders. So, you could have an option for sides of fries, salad, Caesar, sweet potato fries, or a baked potato. Quantity of one. And maybe for a Caesar, it's an upcharge of $1. Sweet potato fries, $1.50. And if it's a baked potato, it's an extra $2. So again, you can feel free to copy these tables and put in all the different groups and alternatives that you have for your menu items. And this will come into play when we start keying things in. It's a good way of organizing items here. And then finally, the last one is the food and beverage menu item. So this identifies the key item that's on the point of sale side of things, in this case the hamburger, and then all the different options and alternatives that are associated to it. So if we look at our hamburger, I have a sell price of $9.80. I could put in whatever menu section I have. So I might have one that's a burger or burgers. And then I have an alternative for meat temp. And my options are rare, medium, medium rare, medium, medium well, and well. The side options that I had talked about. So these are an alternative. I could have one or the other, but not both. French fries, sweet potato fries, chips, coleslaw, or cottage cheese. Now I have an option for cheese. So I can put any one of these cheeses on, or both, or all of them. And here's the upcharges for them. Same with toppings. So my grilled onions, mushrooms, bacon, jalapenos, and grilled peppers. Just to put it out in your head there, you do have the option, I've seen it used, to have items removed. So maybe your burger comes always with lettuce, tomato, onion, pickles, and veggies, but a guest may decide not to have those. So you can have this remove option come up. And then any additional sides. So maybe a guest might order the fries, but they get some sort of a discount if they order a side salad or a side Caesar or a cup of chili or a cup of soup. And then created all the different tables so you can fill these in, and it works really well with mapping out how your menu works and how to key it into the point of sale side of things. Like to open it up now for questions about this worksheet. As you're going along, I'm hoping that things are popping to mind as to how you're going to fill this in and how you're going to plan your point of sale as it stands. Did everybody open up the spreadsheet? Okay. Well, then let's go through. We've already done the table section, so we don't really need to go through that. What I did want to go through more is the options and alternatives. So just clearing up something here. Okay. So we'll open up that spreadsheet again. We'll go to the options and alternatives. And let's go. Let's see. Keith, if you can give me an example of an option, and we'll put it through into this table here. So let me make a copy. All right. So you're up. Do we still... Keith, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to type. I think it's a little slow.
Oh, I haven't given anybody the controls yet. I was going to sort of have it, if you want to sort of talk it out.
Oh, yeah, so for our sandwiches we have types of bread.
Oh, okay. So now what type of bread do you think that'd be an option or an alternative?
I guess that would be an alternative.
Okay, yep, that would be. Just to sort of make sure where your thinking's at, what is it about the bread that makes it an alternative?
I guess I'm confused. Some of our options on sandwiches are like white wheat, rye, sourdough.
Okay, and this is sort of, it is an option, yes. Just sort of introducing you to the terminology that we use in Total E. An option is where you can have multiple selections, whereas an alternative is where there's only one outcome. So like my meat temps, I can have a steak that's done medium or well done, but I can't have both on the same steak. So in the example that you're explaining to me here with bread, I would set that up as as an option, or my mistake, as an alternative, because I can have white toast or brown toast, but I can't have a white brown toast.
Gotcha.
Okay. So let's go ahead. If you want to, I'm going to remove these, and I'm sort of just going to copy them down as you read them out to me. So we'll say that this would be a bread type. And what would be the options?
White,
Okay.
wheat,
Mm-hmm.
sourdough,
Okay.
rye,
Okay.
muffin,
Pardon me?
English muffin.
Okay. Now, with any of those, would there be any type of an upcharge? Is there a specialty bread that might have, maybe it's an extra 25 cents or something?
Not at our facility.
Okay. You could do that. So let's say you did have a sourdough. Maybe the sourdough is a quarter extra because it's artisan or something like that. So you'd make a note of it here to add an extra 25 cents. So let's get rid of this section. Let's do another example here. So let me, Keith, you're sort of off the hook for the time being. Let's call on, let's see, who do we have here? Sean.
Yes.
Let's see if you can give us an example of an option.
Options. We're jumping back to options.
Yeah, we're going to keep things interesting here.
If you were making, you needed to put in the items for an omelet. For example.
Oh, perfect. Omelet is a good one. Okay, so we have our omelet toppings, fillings, stuffings, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so what might be omelet toppings?
You might have onions or spinach, any number of different types of cheeses, which then gets interesting because here's an option where you would have an alternate that applies to it.
Well, now there would be the next question. Would there be alternates?
If you had cheese and you wanted to specify the type of cheese.
Yep. But could I order feta and cheddar in my omelet if I wanted to?
Yes, you could. Depends
So would that be an option or an alternative?
Then that would be an option.
Exactly. So what I might do in this case is create a separate cheese grouping, because that could be used elsewhere as well.
Okay.
Again, more of a suggestion. I'm not trying to say you have to do it this way, but that's what this table sort of helps us to identify, is how do we want to organize things? How do we want to group things? But we'll put in cheese now. Okay, and like I mentioned, let's say there was an extra, let's say we're going to throw in some chorizo. I love chorizo in my omelets. And there might be an upcharge of 75 cents. So I can put that in just like that. Okay, we're going to, let's see, who do we have now? Let's call on... Let's see, Mike, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's have you create or come up with another example. I'm going to keep this open. You come up with something. You tell us what it is.
For options?
Either an option or an alternative. You give us out the listing of components and let us know whether you think that's a option or an alternative.
Okay. I'll say hot dog and the different kinds of meat. So plain hot dog, hot link, or a special kind of sausage.
Okay. Now, would that be an option or an alternative?
I guess with the varying price, it'd be an option.
So I order a hot dog. Can I have a sausage and a hot link?
No.
Okay, so then that would make it into an alternative.
Correct.
So we'll wipe this one out and we'll say this would be... So our meat types then, like you had mentioned, could have a... Oops. A sausage, could have hot link. What were some of the other ones?
It's basic, just a plain hot dog.
Okay. Could have maybe a foot long in there as well.
Yeah.
And for those out there, maybe it's a turkey dog.
There we go.
So again, here's where we could get into our different pricing strategies for them. So, you know, the plain one would probably be a $0 upcharge, but a foot long might be an extra $1.
Mm-hmm.
The turkey might be an extra $1.50, and a sausage might be $1.25. And that's how we would map it out. And then when we get into things like the food and beverage menu inventory, here's where we can identify it. So this helps to break it out. So what I would do is I would start here from your menus, put in the item would be what does the menu actually say, and then what are the different choices that I have, and then all the different choice subcomponents. And then by looking through them and asking myself, can I have any one of these by itself, or can I have multiple different ones on the same? And then from there, be able to guide into creating your options and alternatives. Then once you notice, so I might realize that, hey, I have a meat temp here of rare, medium. I can use that anywhere. So I don't have to keep creating a hamburger meat temp and then a steak meat temp and then a salmon meat temp. I can create one and use it everywhere. So you start seeing how this worksheet's coming together and how it's going to work with us to do things for next week when we start actually putting this information into the system. So what I'm going to do is we're going to open it up yet again to another practical application. And let's go with John. Are you still there? Paging John Zamora. John Zamora, are you there? Nope. Not hearing that. So let's go. Let's try then. Oh, sorry, John has no mic. Okay, that's fine, John. What I'll do, I'm going to give you the control now. And on here, on the template that we're looking at, if you could go ahead and think of one menu item, and let's go ahead and put it all out together here. So just give you the full screen. You now have full control. Let's go ahead and create an item. So again, this is you're totally driving this one, John. So whatever you want to put in here, you're going to guide us through. Oh, perfect. A 2-egg breakfast. I like this. Okay. Now, you could put this into a sell price, so you could carry on. Could put it into a menu section. That menu section is also going to be probably more key than the selling price would be. So if it resides in a specific area on your menu, here's where we do. Yep. So you could have breakfast items. Okay. All right. Now let's start looking at our options and alternatives. So in our 2-egg breakfast, I'm assuming it obviously comes with 2 eggs. So when we ask somebody about the eggs, what do we want to know? So I'm thinking probably an egg style or a method of cooking or something to that effect. Now, right off the top, as we're talking about the style, is it an option or is it an alternative? So so sort of in the example I did, I put bracket alt for an alternative and opt for option. Exactly. John says that it is an alt. John, can you give us a breakdown as to, or an explanation as to why that would be an alternative?
Well, John doesn't have a mic.
Oh, he discovered the chat window.
There you go.
And as he explained, it says they can only be cooked one way, and that's exactly it. You can only have one style of egg at a time for one given egg. Perfect. Okay, so in our list of options for the style, what different methods do you or would you offer or have on the menu? Perfect, over easy. And then we would go, go horizontally across, and we put the next option. Poached, perfect. Perfect, over hard. Now, there is, as some people may notice, that you could have a poached hard or poached soft. You could put a second option in for that. Or depending on how commonly that comes up, let's say, maybe it's one guest out of every couple hundred who ask for a hard poached, you could use the comment field for that one. Okay, we got basted eggs. Okay, so we got the idea of what we're doing with our style. What would be our next option or alternative that could be offered on a 2-egg breakfast? Perfect, a meat type. Okay. So I'm guessing what the good old bacon, sausage. Does anybody offer Polish sausage? Oh, ham, yep, another good one. Ooh, steak. Now, would the steak be an upcharge? Okay, so what we could do in our organizational template here is in brackets, we could put the upcharge that we want to put for this. So maybe it was an extra $3 for the steak. And now, anybody else? Okay, so I see John. Okay, John, you're having some issues. Is it the system's not controlling, or you have a question?
Needs another line. You need to add another line. Upcharge on.
Oh, okay. So what we do is just put an Alt-Enter, and that puts you into another line in there. So go ahead, John. You can now fill in the upcharge on the steak. Oh, in the red, that was more of just a formatting thing that I did, just for clarification. But all you have to do is highlight it, and then you see the little red in the top left corner of the page where it says a little A and has a red underline. That's where you could do that. Perfect. Now, does anybody see something else that might have popped up here? Now we offer a steak with our breakfast. Exactly. So in this case, we might even offer it for the meat temp to be as a second option within the 2-egg breakfast. Now, again, I'm just noticing here, I'm a little offended here. Nobody put in the Canadian bacon. Nobody mentioned anything about Canadian bacon. What's up with that?
That's ham.
Good point. I just like to have our little Canadian stamp on things, you know? And so as we're mapping this out, we realize that, hey, if I have steak doneness here and in my burger I have a meat temp, I don't necessarily need to recreate the wheel every single time. I can just create one section for meat temps and be able to use it anywhere I need to check what a meat temp is on an item. Okay, let's see. What would be the next thing we would want on our 2-egg breakfast? Toast. Exactly. Now, before we move on there, John, is that going to be an alternative or an option? Exactly, it's an alternative. So again, I would put in brackets beside toast that it's an alternative. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so I think we've given John a pretty hard time here. So let's find our new victim. Adam, we're gonna get you on here. So let me give you control. Okay, let's go ahead now, and I'm going to give you a little guidance on this. Let's create something in the appetizer category. Yep, exactly. Oh, perfect. This is a good example here. Okay. So, what kind of options do we have for our sliders? Okay, exactly. Now, is that an option or an alternative?
Alternative.
Would it be? Could I put blue and marble together on the same?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Brian, in this particular example,
Mm-hmm.
let's say that the core item comes with one cheese, but someone does this, want another one. But the second cheese is a 50-cent upcharge. which could apply to any one of these, dependent upon if that were the scenario.
Okay, so what we could identify here is how many different cheeses were selected. And then we can put an upcharge based upon, 1 cheese, 2 cheese, 3 cheese, 4 cheese. That's typically how I've seen it done. It also, that type of a thing would come into play on, let's say, omelets, where maybe you get the first 3 toppings included, and each additional topping is maybe 25 cents. Or if anybody does like pizzas or flatbreads, where you get your choice of toppings. Maybe you get 3 toppings on your flatbreads, and then everything else would be 50 cents extra. So what I might make in this mapping planning section that we're doing here, beside cheese, I might put a little asterisk and say for 1 cheese. And then in the second option, I would say, how many extra cheeses were ordered? 1, 2, 3, or 4. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I got it. I mean, this is the broad-based mapping, and then the programming of that comes in the next phase.
Exactly, yeah. This basically helps us to identify things and see where there's any commonality that we can use. So we're not, creating the slider cheese option, the steak cheese option, the burger cheese option. If all we need is 1 option for cheese, and we can attach it everywhere. Okay, so we've got our cheese option. What else would be an option for this slider dish?
The only other option would be that it comes with spread and pickle. So whether the customer wants to keep that on there or not.
Okay. What about doneness? Or are the sliders all cooked to medium or medium well?
No, they can.
Okay, so then again, we would want to put in here the temperatures. And while you're working through these worksheets, if you realize that, hey, I've already used a meat temp, I can just make a note of it in that options. I don't necessarily have to spell everything out. Okay. Let's go. Let's see. I think we've done pretty good here with Adam. Do we have any volunteers that want to go next? No volunteers, eh? Okay, let's see. Who do we have here? Mike, did we call on you? I think we called on you a little earlier, but I don't think we've given you an option here.
You did, but
oh, you've already. Okay, I'm sorry. What about Sean? Did you key one in here into this template, Sean?
I haven't keyed one into this template. I started the omelet exercise.
Ah, right. Okay. So then let's have you then key in. Let's do a dessert, just for example. So you should now have control.
Will be answered in just a moment.
Perfect. Ice cream is a great example. Okay, so what kind of options and alternatives would we have with ice cream?
I thought I started typing here, but didn't recognize it. All right, here we go.
Okay, yep, flavor.
I guess of course you could have multiple flavors. It would be an add-on, but maybe I should have been more specific. 1 scoop ice cream or something.
You could, again, not that this has to be entirely accurate at the moment, more so that you get the idea of how to use this template to map out your menus. Okay, perfect. Yes. Now, why is the toppings optional?
Because you could have all the toppings on it if you'd like, or you could have just one.
Perfect. Good, good, good. Okay. So we worked through creating menu items for food items. I think next what we're doing, well, first of all, the time has quickly gone by. We've almost gone through another hour. So what we're going to do, I've got about 10 minutes to the hour. We're going to take another slight break, and we'll meet back at the top of the hour, and we'll continue on, except this time we're going to go into doing these same type of things, but we're going to do it for the beverage menu. So things like beer and drinks and mixed drinks, things like that. Okay, so again, got about 10 minutes, and we'll see everybody back here. And in this bar item, there's going to be a couple of different options for it. So let's go ahead, Sean. No Sean. Okay. Oh, Sean's taking a quick pause here.
I'm back. Sorry about that,
Okay.
Brad.
Nope, not at all, Sean. So, were you able to hear me?
No,
Okay,
now
perfect.
I can. I heard you say let's go with Sean, so I didn't
Okay.
have a sense of what you want me to do, but go ahead, start over from there.
Okay, so basically we're creating a drink item now. Same idea as we did with the food items, except now our options could be a little different. So let's create one for, I don't know, what's the most commonly had drink that you can think of?
Go with Bloody Mary.
Perfect. Okay. So let's put that in the item. Now, I know you guys like your Bloody Marys down there, but has anybody tried the Caesars? A Bloody Caesar? You take the Bloody Mary and you mix it with Clamato juice, and it's even better.
Okay. So we could go with, I would want to state vodka, but I guess I'm just trying to think from a layout standpoint. There's Well Call Premium and then the vodkas would be a subset of that?
Well, there's a couple different ways. If you have if you had multiple top shelf ones, then yeah. Or you could have it as an option to say, do you have it as your well or your medium shelf or your top shelf? What I'd be more concerned about here would be things like maybe you want it extra spicy.
Yeah.
Or maybe specific styles of glassware.
Okay, let's go with glassware, for example.
Mm-hmm. And I know this probably goes without saying, but why did you choose alternative for your glassware?
Because you can't have more than one glass for the same drink.
Exactly.
So we'll go with tumbler, and I am not the most savvy of guys when it comes to this, so I'm not really sure what are options.
You could go with something like a hurricane.
Glass. Hurricane, okay. That suffice for now, I guess.
Exactly. Second option.
We'll go with...
Okay. It's like your garnishes, I'm assuming?
Yeah, there you go. Garnish
okay.
better.
Yeah. And again, yes, that would be an option for... Yep, your celery, your pickle, your olives, onions. And again, I don't know if anybody out there does it, but maybe if you did, any type of like a bacon wrapped onion or bacon wrapped pickle that you put with it, there could be an upcharge for that.
All right. I guess I could just list vodka, and then as I went through, if it was a well, not do anything, and if it was a premium, I can attach, like you did previously, and just denote in red the upcharge for that.
Exactly, yeah.
So let's say that that's the well drink, then we'll go with Smirnoff.
Okay, so that might be like your mid-level.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was your shortcut? Alt-Enter?
Oh, you need to be actually, my mistake, into the actual text. So you clicked into the text as if you're editing, and now Alt-Enter.
Okay.
So maybe it's me that... Oh, yep, you're on a second line. So if you clicked out of it, it should... Oh, yep, there we go. So there, and then just do, again, Alt-Enter, and start typing.
All right, I keep doing that. I'm not sure what is happening here.
Because you're on a second line and there's only 2 lines. Again, this is more of an Excel thing. I did it on separate lines, just things clear, but if you want it right beside it, that's fine as well.
We'll go.
Perfect. Other options you could have in that type of drink is maybe style of ice. I don't know if if you have different, like crushed ice versus cubed versus whatever. That's one option as well. Okay.
I have to put the somebody could blend vodkas if they wanted to, but I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't see the point. Okay, that's good for doing a Bloody Mary. I think that's a couple other, couldn't think of any other options that we'd want to use with that one maybe. Let's see, let's move on. Let's find a new volunteer, and let's go back to Keith. So Keith, this time I'm going to give you one here. Let's create let's think about this as if you were a server. So I'm going to order just a straight up shot of liquor. So let's say I want a vodka.
Okay, and you want options for that?
Well, that's exactly it. So let's go through different things that we could do with a vodka, just to show what we could do with different shots and mixing and things like that, to sort of put it into this template. So there should be another table if you want to just keep scrolling down the list here. Okay, so our item here is going to be a vodka. Menu section is probably just going to be liquor. Okay, so now what kind of options would we have with just an order of vodka?
Quantity of shots, so like a double.
Okay, so yep, the size or the how it's poured, or size of pour. Now is that going to be an option or is that going to be an alternative?
That will be an alternative.
Correct. Okay, so single, double, triple. Are there any other sizes that you come across?
No, that's probably good.
Okay. What would be the next one that you might ask? So if somebody orders a vodka, what might you ask them?
Salt, so lime.
So garnish? Oh, I'm just asking. So it's sort of one of those things that as we're going through this exercise, it's sort of to get you thinking about how you can table the food and beverage service that you provide. Okay. What else would go with a vodka?
I guess an option would be the type of spirit, so like soda.
So the type of spirit or like brand?
No, like if you wanted soda water or tonic.
So mix. Exactly. Now, why is it an option?
Yeah, if you were going to mix different spirits.
Okay, yep. And again, you're in food and beverage terms, your mix is probably going to be one of your largest option categories. Simply because you can have everything as soda, tonic, cranberry, Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite, 7-Up, so on. Or you could even simplify it if you wanted to have it sort of like a soda, juice, and other, if you wanted to. Oop. So we flip back here. There we go. Okay, so Then our single, double, triples, our garnishes, our mix. And again, here we might realize that, oh, we can reuse that ice section again. Or we could reuse our glassware. So you see where we're going with all this planning and laying it out. It seems like a lot of work up front, but it's going to make the data entry part so much easier, because what you'll be able to do once we've done our demonstration of it is you could actually assign this to almost anybody you want to, because you'd have this worksheet in front of them, and you just have to show them, here's where you type it all in. Okay, let's see. So we've done Sean, we've done Keith, we've done Adam. Let's try Mike. Let's have you create a. Let's do a beer this time.
Okay.
Now this is we're not going to let you off easy as to just having it. This is going to be a draft pour. So let's go ahead and do a draft pour beer here.
Okay.
Oh, did I have control?
I think so. Typing nothing.
Okay, so Mike, you should have control now.
No, still.
Nope. I've been having a little static on my... So maybe that's causing it. Are you able to manipulate the spreadsheet now? Looks like it. Perfect. Okay, so in the item...
The draft beer?
Yep. Try clicking out and clicking back into it. So click anywhere in the spreadsheet. Okay, and now go back to it. That's...
Still unable to.
That's interesting. That's not like do anything. Let's close it down. And I'm just restarting. Okay, let's try that again, Mike.
Okay.
Are we able to?
There we go.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, and in the options and alternatives, what might be the first thing we ask?
Type, domestic, or
Okay, yep. Or you could go by brand, depending on if you had a lot of options and you wanted to keep it all in one screen, or wanted to have it in sub-menus, definitely.
Okay.
So by brand, let's go, the typical Bud, Coors Light. Let's go with You guys sell a lot of Anchor?
Yep.
Okay, we'll go with Anchor. And Sierra Nevada? Now, in this case, you could also, again, apply that upcharge. So if you wanted to keep your Bud and Coors at one price, and maybe your Anchor is maybe your mid-grade, and your Sierra Nevada is one of your more premium ones, you can put those upcharges there.
Okay.
What could be the next option that you'd ask?
Size?
Exactly. So things like what? Half pint, pint,
Yeah.
and probably a pitcher? And in here, again, you could put the different costs for different ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brandon, size, would those be alternatives or options?
It would be alternative.
Perfect, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm sort of going to introduce a concept here. Now that we sort of got the idea of how these options and alternatives work, we also have a feature called Universal Modifier. And what that is, basically it's a group of options or selections, choices, whatever you want to call it, that can be applied to anything. Where it's commonly used would be things like using an order, like let's say my hamburger was ordered, but I'm sharing it with somebody, so I want it on a split plate. So I could have the option for split plate, and you have that available to anything that comes out of the kitchen. When we're talking about the bar setup, this could be where you ask questions about the glassware, or if we're talking about draft beer, maybe frosted or frosted, unfrosted glassware.
Okay.
If for your bottled beer, maybe some people like to have a glass versus just drinking it straight from the bottle. You could use that as a universal modifier. So again, just one other thing to be aware of when you're creating these is having a universal modifier for things like that. And typically they're used for the non-edible type of options. So like the split plate or the style of glass or anything along those lines.
Okay.
Okay. So again, just reiterating what we're trying to do here is to be able to use a bad line, you want to be able to see the matrix here. So we're looking through, and as you're looking at your menu, you're able to see it laid out in this manner. So it becomes second nature to you. Okay, so we've done the draft beer. We've done some like shots of things. We've done a mixed drink. We've done some hamburgers and some desserts and things like that. As we've been going through all this, are there any questions or concerns or comments or anything that you're just not entirely sure about in what we've covered or how it's going to apply next week? Okay, so again, I please speak up. What's going to happen is that I'm looking for next week's session is for you to have these worksheets created and filled in with the information for your respective courses. Next week's session, we're going to go through this and take these items from the template and be able to put them directly into the system in the way that they need to be. And then part of next week's session is looking at, well, okay, we got all this data. How does it get in there? Where do I put it? Okay. So has everybody got a good understanding of what we're talking about here and why we're doing this? Does anybody want to take another crack at things and take a look at it and try putting it in a few more options? Or is there any type of funky configuration that you can think of from your own menus that you're not quite sure how it's going to translate into this table? So everybody's pretty comfortable with keying this stuff in. Okay, so we're gonna do. Not that I don't trust you, but I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna create one for you as we go along. So I'm gonna give control here to. Let's go with Adam. So Adam, you now have control. What I'm going to ask for you, we're going to create a club sandwich. Okay. My sell price on my club sandwich is $9.99. And the menu section, it's going to go into the prepared foods. Okay, so when I order a club sandwich, first thing I want to know is, do I want it to be turkey or chicken? Now, is this meat going to be an option or an alternative, do you think?
I said if they wanted both, they could have both, which would make it an option. But most of the time, they just choose one, which would make it an alternative.
Exactly. And you may come across conditions like that. And what I would do is I would always go with what's the most common.
Yeah, the most common would be the alternative.
Exactly. So let's set it up as an alternative because you can always, create some fancy way of doing it for that one-off that always pops up every so often. Okay, so we'll put the ham and we'll also do a chicken. Okay, the next thing I would want to do is what kind of bread do I want it on? So I might have white. Exactly. It is an alternative, and it could, if I want to get really picky with things, I could say, I want the two outer layers to be white and the inside to be rye. But that would be probably once in a blue moon that would pop up. So white, sourdough, exactly. Now I could also have the option to come up now with my bread. Do I want it toasted or not toasted? And I might say yes or no. Or If it's toasted, I could have it, is it toasted, lightly toasted, medium toasted, or dark toasted? And that could come up elsewhere as well. I could be used in my breakfast section. Burnt. Nice. Okay. And I like that option. Threw in that option of having, no, I don't want it toasted. Great eye there. Okay, let's go. So maybe, do I want mayo? Or what kind of sauces do I want? Do I want the mayo? Do I want the fancy mayo? Or no sauce? Perfect, a none option. Okay. Pretty straightforward. I'm trying to think if there's anything else fancy that I can think of that might come up or might provide that little extra monkey wrench into things here. And nothing's coming to mind. And again, I sort of put a challenge out to everybody out there. Can you think of something that might be really difficult, or how you would lay it out into this type of a table? So nobody's got any tricky type of menu items that they'd like to see written up? Okay. Just want to sort of take back control here, and what we're going to do is just recap everything that we've covered today. So I'm going to relaunch the actual Total E program here. All right, so again, from the beginning, getting logged in. Everybody's familiar with that. We've sent out the links and the passwords to get in. Once we're in, we go to the setup, the food and beverage, and the restaurants. In the restaurants, we can add multiple ones if we wanted to, and we can name them differently to differentiate. We added menu tables and sections, which was also covered in the worksheet that we have. Tables and sections, here's where you can lay it out. All our different settings for about our end of day, that was the big one here. Then we went over to the food and beverage and to the terminals, and these are the actual point of sales where the servers are going to come in and type in the orders. So we covered the naming of them, the auto logout feature. We had some handouts, some PDF files that show the different outcomes of making these print and non-print options, specifically the alternatives and the options in red. And then, again, in that handout shows all the different configurations and what the outcome is going to look like with the printed receipt to both the guest, the kitchen, and the bar. Talked a little bit about the receipt setup. So any special marketing features that you want to have on the receipt can be entered in here. And then we went into creating the worksheet, working through the options and alternatives, with the options being, basically the keyword to remember in options is the and in alternatives, the keyword is or. And then we went through the worksheet of summarizing the entire menu into these tables so that we can program it in on our session next week. So just sort of want to open it now to any open discussion about the food and beverage and how things are going to proceed and what we're looking at doing with your individual setups. So everybody's all comfortable, everybody's 100% on this. Okay. So for next week's session, what I'm looking to have is for everybody to have completed this worksheet with all of their menu items. The sell price, not really a concern at the moment. We can look at that later, but what we really want is the options and alternatives and the item name itself. And then from here in our worksheet on the inventory, or my mistake, the menu items, the options and alternatives tables to be filled out with all of the unique options and alternative groupings that need to exist. And then lay out the seating for the number of tables that you have in your individual locations and have that translated over into the sections and tables on each one of your workstations or each one of your point of sales. Anything that might be prohibitive from getting that accomplished, or any roadblocks you're seeing right now, maybe knowledge, maybe timing, anything like that? Okay. Then that's where we're going to end things for today. Again, thank you all. We've got the recording. We'll be publishing that up online. And I'm going to stay on the line, so if you have any questions, any unique things that you didn't want to have in front of the group, by all means, I'll be here. And please feel free to either send it through the chat or send it over the phone.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks,
Thank
Brad.
you.